Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Noisy Golfer, the junior podcast brought to you by Noisy Golf. Thank you so much for the feedback on the first 2 episodes so far, talking about how to be the best caddy for your junior golfer, as well as what is college golf like. We are joined today with Andy Little, who is the founder and master US Kids Master Top 50 golf coach, who's joined us today. If you're enjoying the contents that we've got out so far, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, or even the little notification bell to let you know when our next video is out. But for those of you that don't know Andy, we'll be surprised if you don't, because he's got a fantastic following on social media. Andy, if you could introduce yourself and we can talk about the latest things about junior golf.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, obviously I'm Andy Little. Started Little Golfers over 13 years ago now. The sort of really focus was on obviously junior golf as sort of my speciality over the last 20 years that I've been focusing on. I'm now a US Kids Coach Master Coach, which I'm the only one in England at the moment, which obviously has just been just a series of events over the last few years. So things I've been doing with US Kids. Definitely sort of myself sort of specialised in junior golf. Really my sort of so my ethos is obviously I'm a very enthusiastic coach. I'm a very passionate coach. So I try to, my sort of target market is definitely sort of 4 to 7 year olds. So it's just obviously Little Golf has just developed over the years. Funny enough, especially with the Olympics going on right now. So Little Golfers originally started just before the London Olympics, when there was a lot of school funding around. So Little Golfers started purely in schools, and it's just evolved to a stage now where Little Golfers is now based in an indoor golf studio, as well as doing some outside coaching, a regular golf course. And it's just great. It's just developed over to the point that we now, I think, come September, we're going to be hitting 170 kids on a weekly basis. So it's just something that I'm really passionate about. So it's really good fun. I definitely enjoy what I do. So it's lovely to obviously chat about junior golf, and obviously if any questions and any help that I can do with any coaches around the world, then I'm happy to do that.
Fantastic.
That's great. Well, you just mentioned that there, Andy, which I didn't know, wasn't aware of, is that you started off in schools. Is that right?
Yeah, so it was got to a stage, funny enough, so Little Golfers really originally started for a bit of a work-life balance. So I was originally based at a golf course, doing junior coaching there. I just, my son Blake was on the way, and as much as working at a golf course environment was fantastic, I was basically working every minute of the sun. And starting Little Golfers, working in schools, just made it, at the time, it just made a bit of a work-life balance. So my coaching became more during the school day. So I was doing a lot of the extracurricular activities. I was doing breakfast clubs, lunchtime clubs, after school clubs, PE lessons. And when we was at that stage, all schools were part of a school sports partnership. And with the lottery funding that was coming from, obviously from the Olympics, etc., there was just opportunities for kids that they were targeting. Every project had a bit of a target, whether it was obviously like the semi-sporty or girls, or kids with, say, behavioural issues. And so Little Golfers very much started using, it was the tri-golf equipment, so basically the plastic club and sponge balls. So I would be going into a school, I had a group of kids on a lunchtime, and we were just doing lots of different games. A lot of the school golf that you see is very much like relay races. So you set up an activity, you would have, say 12 to 16 kids in 4 teams. And they run up to a point, they do a golf task to win a point, they collect their ball back, they run back, they high-five their partner, and then obviously the next kid goes. So it really, Little Golfers started as that, and it got to a real sort of good stage. I had a few coaches working for me, but I think the best term or school term I ever had, I had 55 schools across sort of Surrey and sort of South London, etc. And it was just obviously fantastic. And then unfortunately, once the Olympics in London in 2012 happened at London, then all the funding started to sort of just disappear with it. So then obviously the business model has sort of changed. So I ended up then going to another golf course, a facility. I still did the schools. The schools was definitely a fantastic feeder and a fantastic pathway. So, I kept the schools going for as long as possible. I haven't been able to do it since sort of COVID. So I was still in schools sort of pre-COVID, and it was fantastic. It allowed golf to go to the kids. So rather than waiting for the kids to come to the golf course, it was like, hi, I'm literally at your school and I'm going to be doing this lunchtime session with you. Here's all the equipment. We could play a few games. And obviously then if you got to a stage where the kids enjoyed it, then obviously then they could go to a golf course and continue their journey. So definitely sort of pre-COVID, I was still working in a few schools, and where I was based back then, there was a little pitch and putt golf course. And what I used to do at the end of each term is invite all the kids that I've been teaching and they're in schools to come to a competition at the golf course. So, you know, it was sort of like, right, here's your little taste on a concrete playing field. So now here's a golf taste at the golf course, and then hopefully then turning them to golfers. And there's definitely been I've definitely seen kids that have gone from a school environment to a golf course environment to are now golfers. And an even funnier stage where I remember teaching a kid who kept coming on a weekly basis for term after term, absolutely loved it, and then still got to a stage where he played golf on a regular basis and was a member of a golf course, but just always loved his breakfast club at his school because it was just with his friends and it was a different type of golf. So rather than seeing it as just a sort of an introduction of golf, and then once you've sort of done that introduction, you sort of then dropped it and went on to proper golf, it was just a different form of golf. So, you know, as much as it was with a plastic club, it didn't really matter to them because they were just having fun doing the activities and the games and the relay races. So it wasn't like they had to like do one or the other. They can actually sort of do both. I did really enjoy the school stuff, and you know, it was definitely, you know, interesting how every school is a different environment. Every school has different sort of challenges, from obviously like, you know, behavior issues. State and private schools, I definitely noticed a change and difference in their approach. I even a few years ago, I even had the opportunity to do some golf at the Children's Trust, which was definitely an eye opener. Obviously, for, you know, kids that have really had horrific sort of accidents or sort of disabilities that are, you know, you look at what they're not able to do, and I went and did a golf session with them, and it was quite an eye opener. You know, it got to a stage. I remember a kid was putting a ball off just the tray on his wheelchair with his carer, and I remember sort of doing the session. I was like, I can't. We're not doing a lot, but because to him he was playing his version of golf. Yeah. The kid absolutely loved it, but to us, I would look at that and like, well, that's not really golf. He's just literally just pushing a ball off a tray and it's just falling down in front of him. But it just had, you know, gave the kid the opportunity to play golf at his level on his terms, and he absolutely loved it. So it was definitely, I've definitely taught a wide spectrum of kids. A few interesting stories. I've been to pupil referral units, which is definitely an eye opener as well. It's like an unfortunate, like I suppose to put it politely, it's like a child's version of prison. You know, so for those unfortunate kids that have just gone down a bit of a bad path and ended up being expelled from every other school, and it ended up in this unit to help their education, and they obviously got an opportunity to play some golf. So there was, you know, there's not many kids and quite a lot of teachers, and it was just like a little bit of a, again, so every school I've ever been to is just that I've learned something from it. And I think that's probably why I've got to a stage now, you know, 20 years down the line, where I feel very comfortable and confident with junior coaching, just because I've experienced so many different things from different settings and different grounds. And, you know, the school assemblies are always quite fun as well. You know, when you've got like 300 kids in front of you, and then I get the head teacher up to try and hit a shot on a target or something like that. You know, I feel like it's definitely a personality trait. As much as I'm a golf pro, I don't feel I'm a golf pro when I teach the kids. I just feel that I'm just lucky enough that I've got those qualities that I can handle a group of kids, or being in a sort of center stage environment where I don't mind that sort of attention. So when I was doing the school assemblies, I quite enjoyed having all the kids and trying to have a bit of a laugh with them. But, you know, I think to another golf pro that'd be keen to do junior coaching, they may have a different personality trait where they might be a little bit shy or a bit reserved, and they may sort of feel that's a bit
I think you've kind of, you've definitely done the whole spectrum, haven't you, really? You've covered kids within that space, and you've literally gone all ages and abilities, and you've kind of made the most of that experience for them. Like you said, you know, from from the child that might have been in the wheelchair, it might have not looked much, but to him it was everything at that time. So yeah, you know, it's about you as a person, really, you as a coach, and saying, well, actually I'm a coach, but I can diversify golf across the spectrum here. And like you mentioned earlier as well, your age range that you tend to prefer is like the 4 to 7s. It's that primary age. It's, you know, it's that age where they are like a sponge and they just do want to be involved. And, you know, I think it's amazing that you've got so much experience that then you can now offer within within little golfers and to the children that are coming through as little golfers. What really stood out then was you mentioned that there was obviously golf in schools, and then there was funding that dried up, and there's still like an involvement there. But do you think that there's enough involvement of golf in schools? I know personally my background is 20 plus years in early years, and I've seen, you know, the Diddy kicks come through. I've seen you know, the soccer tots, I've seen the baby ballet, all of that kind of thing come through. Whether it's just this area, whether it's just like Cheshire, then again, I mean, I've worked Europe, Middle East. I've never really seen anything come through for golf. And I know in Isaac's school as well, I've kind of said, you know, sent emails off to the head teacher and whatnot, and just said, you know, there's this funding available, or there's this happening at the moment. And I would love to see more golf in schools, particularly in this area. I mean, you're obviously down south. Do you think that there's more access to it in that area? You know, for reasons that you've obviously mentioned, there's funding available for supporting, you know, additional needs and requirements within schools.
Yeah, you know, so I think there's definitely some activities going on. I think as golf pros, we are not aware of the potential possibilities. Like, I do know a good junior coach, a guy called Neil Plimmer, basically runs his whole operation in a school environment as well. That what I used to do, he offers golf experiences outside. He does a fantastic job. And obviously schools, I know, have these sort of, so sort of sports premium funding. So obviously they do have funding for PE activities. I just don't think golf pros necessarily are aware or know how to tap into those things. I definitely feel like where my business has gone, obviously my school coaching has sort of dried up because my time has been taken up from the golf studio as well as the coaching. But when I was sort of doing coaching, I did get to a stage where I was doing probably 6 to 7 sessions a week, mainly in sort of lunchtime. Then it just got to a stage where it was mainly sort of the parent funding. But from my experience, the hardest thing was just getting your foot through the door to start with. You know, you can send an email to a school and it just gets deleted. You can try and obviously phone the office, and I think unfortunately golf still has a very strong stereotype behind it. So if I'm phoning up a school secretary and I'm trying to offer golf to their kids, because they only recognize golf as you need a massive amount of space, you're using metal equipment, you're using hard golf balls, you know, there's no physical way that you could run a golf session in a school. It'd be far too dangerous. It just sort of gets shuts off. You know, once you can get past that barrier to actually explain, like, I can do golf in a tiny little space, I can use it with plastic clubs, I can use sponge balls, there's not a single window that's ever going to get broken. I can make it fun, I can make it inclusive. And, you know, once you get through that, it got to a stage with the schools that I ended up coaching before COVID. I had been coaching for like 10 years. You know, it was sort of the funding when it all started got me through the door, which was the easy part, because the school was just part of a project, and it wasn't that I was selling golf to them. It was like, by the way, you're part of this golf project because of this little partnership group. When do you want me to turn up? I can come on a Wednesday lunchtime. And once I got my foot through the door, and then I could obviously then show them that golf can be very different in different settings. And then obviously once that funding had stopped, you know, if I had the opportunity, then obviously then I could say, well, actually now we can ask the parents to pay for their child to do it as an extracurricular activity. It was just the hardest thing is just getting yourself through the door in front of the right person. I'd love to be able to sort of send a video to every school in the area and just like a little sort of snapshot of like, this is what golf in a school is. It's not, you need, 10 acres of field in the back of your classrooms to be able to hit a ball 300 yards because of the space and need a perfect putting green. You know, you can literally do it anywhere. There's some of the areas
that I board.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know that we're big fans of your videos.
You can literally do golf with anything and anywhere, you know, possible. Some of the sort of locations I had to do my golf activities in the schools, especially some of the younger schools where they obviously don't have a huge amount of space. You know, I remember having to sort of go around a sand pit, and then obviously like I would have like dolls houses, and you know, the little ride on trikes, having to push them out of the way to try and find a bit of space. But then you just find ways. And one school in particular, one of their favourite games was hitting the ball on the roof. But you know, the roof had a massive slope.
I enjoy that.
So
I had to try and hit the house. Yeah.
We literally like, you know, they're just trying to hit it on the roof, and it was such an achievement to them to hit it over onto a roof and it would roll back down or get stuck in the gutter.
It's engagement, though, isn't it? You know, you're engaging them in something that is fun, and by doing that, of course, they're going to want to take that further. So I think also, once you've got that initial engagement from them, then you've got them. Yeah.
I think there's like a sort of a mischievous element about that, isn't there?
Yeah,
in terms of the, you know, but there's a couple of points that I just wanted to ask you on, just on the back of that. I think that in terms of funding, I think something that you talked about with the London 2012 Olympics, was there a point where do you feel like the legacy should have been lengthened? So the games, obviously they've tried to introduce people to, you know, from different communities into new sports, i.e. golf, and then the Olympics has come and gone, and then it's like, has it ceased? I mean, was there more that they could have done to sustain that accessibility to sports such as golf?
Yeah, obviously I don't know the background behind why it sort of stopped, but I definitely feel sort of back then, you know, literally when it started, there was just so many opportunities, and there was so much money around, and hence why I got up to a stage where there was like 55 schools in one term, and then obviously it just literally just dried up. You know, I don't know whether obviously then the idea of the funding was like, right, well, this year we're going to concentrate on golf, basketball and dance, and then next year we're going to concentrate on three other different sports. So I don't know the reasons behind it, but yeah, it definitely felt like that, you know, we'd built up a real good momentum, and we got to a stage where we had a lot of contacts and a lot of schools. And I don't know whether with the funding it was like, well, actually now your foot's through the door, it's now up to you to continue that. Okay. But the unfortunate thing is obviously the funding went to some of the schools and some of the kids that potentially wouldn't have had those opportunities. So once you're now asking them to pay for themselves, they can't pay for that opportunity because they were, if they could do, they would have done it in the first place. And so it was sort of a back way round about it, you know, in the harshest possible way. If you were sort of a boy who was fairly sporty to start with, from a reasonably sort of a middle class background, you didn't really get these opportunities. You know, part of lottery funding is obviously ticking off certain boxes, and I did feel a bit aggrieved that, you know, all these opportunities for me to go to a school were certain target groups, which I understand why it's obviously very important to include everyone, but in another way, it wasn't including everyone, because it wasn't including the sporty kids that wanted to try all the sports. So, you know, it wasn't including the kid that played all the football and plays all the tennis, but they've maybe not have played golf before. You know, we potentially have missed a future star. You know, if you've got a kid that's sporty already, but they just haven't played golf before, but they've got fantastic hand-eye coordination, they're quite athletic, they're quite on a developmental stage for their age, and then you say, well, actually, if I could have given them the golf club as a 9-year-old or an 8-year-old, and they're quite well developed, they could have ended up really taking to golf to start with, because they might have been physically able to really connect with the ball quite well to start with not much coaching to begin with, and they may have caught the golf bug and then become a golfer at the end of it, which is obviously what the aim of the funding was. It wasn't just to give you an opportunity. It was like, well, actually, we want these kids to play golf in schools, we want them then to come to a golf course, we want them to become golfers at the end of it. It's just a shame that, you know, the ceiling of, you know, it was all these kids I was coaching, and then it was like, well, that's done, and then we sort of lost them, not because they didn't want to do it, they just didn't have the means to then continue that, whether it was obviously just their their situation at home, the financial situation, whatever it was it was just a shame. So yeah, I know there is funding available, but I don't think as golf pros we know the sort of I particularly don't know the ins and outs of how a school educational system and funding works. If there's a way of finding that information out, and then we can say, well, actually, there's these opportunities. The only other thing I would say, obviously, with schools and funding is obviously then it becomes very much extracurricular. So obviously for golf pros, after school can be quite a busy time at the golf course anyway. So it got to a stage for me that I couldn't really do after school very well, because then I've got my 3 groups anyway. One thing I did enjoy is doing some PE lessons, which again was quite a rare opportunity, but I did do a few PE lessons during the school day. And then
I was just going to say, I mean, we kind of see football included in PE, we see cricket included in PE, we don't see golf included in PE. It just seems to be something that again, it's just not come through as like a mainstream sport really within the school environment.
It almost sounds like with the Olympics, where you've had that that spike, and it's grown, and it's grown to a point and then almost like dropped off a cliff edge, like what you said. But it also sounds like there's a reliance on people within the schools to understand the sport itself. Yeah. We all pretty much are brought up with living and watching football. It's almost stereotypical. Boys do football. Hopefully it's changed more since we were at school, but boys do football, girls do netball. There might be a bit of tennis involved in the summer maybe, or rugby, depending on the school that you go to. But we're brought up with those sports because they're and athletics and things like that. But it sounds like that unless there's an intrinsic knowledge on golf, on accessibility, on how to include it, it almost sounds like if that school doesn't have that, it's not introduced.
Yeah.
Would that be fair to say?
I think I think the sort of the PE curriculum hasn't changed. I feel like the accessibility of all sports, and obviously again using the Olympics as a tool. Obviously they introduce new sports all the time. Like I was watching skateboarding today. There's obviously there's always a flowing change of the times. So there's sports that are happening in the Olympics this year that obviously haven't been introduced before. But I think and I could be wrong, but I just think the school program for PE is quite bog standard. Like you said, I when I was at school, 20 years ago, it was sort of football in the winter, rugby in the winter, then sort of badminton, and then athletics, and that was pretty much it. And they were the sports that I remember playing at secondary school, and that was it. And I don't think that's really changed.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Definitely room for development there.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, just to move on. I mean, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, my background is early years, and until 2 years ago, I've worked nurseries, kind of here, there, and everywhere. We've obviously looked into the school element of things. You're moving into something now called Birdie Basics, and the program is actually for, is it 3 or 4 year olds up to about 6 year olds? Is that right?
So Birdie Basics is a coaching program based in the States. They do look at Birdie Basics. Their program is definitely run for 3 to 6 year olds. But the way that I'm going to look at it from my business model is to try to tap into the 3 to 4 market. So Birdie Basics is a coaching program which is a story themed golf session. So the idea behind it is you're using puppets. So there is a mama bird, and there's a few other birds that you use as a story. So the golf session is very much run through different themes each week. I think the first session is all about safety, and one of the birds has been injured, their wing. So then therefore you're playing activities where you're helping that bird get to the hospital, you're helping that bird recover through medicine. So you're using basically a storyline for the kids to then play golf in some way or form without them even realizing it. So they're like, the golf ball turns into supplies for the hospital, or the ambulance, or I know one of the stories is going to the shop. So they're going to be doing an activity to earn some birdie coins, so therefore then they can buy some fruit from the grocery stores and stuff like that. So I've saw Birdie Basics at the PGA show January 2020, which feels like a lifetime ago, because that's the last time I was on a plane. And I met Kate, who's the owner of Birdie Basics. She obviously comes from a very, very sort of strong early years background as well, and she has developed this program which has been quite successful in America, and there's a few internationals that do it as well. And I was going to do this sort of pre-COVID, but then unfortunately COVID hit and it sort of stopped, and now I'm in a stage where I can reintroduce that. It's an exciting time. I've not been able to do my sort of first session as yet, but I'm really going to look at it as an opportunity to tap into the 3 to 4s that just don't have the opportunity yet. Maybe they're not at school yet. So obviously, again, you're going to be using plastic clubs, going to be using sponge balls. So very much stuff that, you know, I would have done in a school environment, but just using a story themed and a story led golf session. So, you know, I'll have to work on my puppet skills with my mama bird.
I can't see you having any problems.
It'll be from what I've seen on their social media and what I've seen from the coaches doing it, it looks something that I can do. I feel comfortable, you know, sitting in a little circle with some 3 to 4-year-olds and pretending to be a puppet and talking a story. So it'll be good. It'll be really exciting to sort of see how it grows. And yeah, I am, I suppose, quite fortunate in the area that I am, that I feel like there's going to be some interest. There's definitely some of my current little golfers that come on a weekly basis are not even quite 4 yet anyway. So I know there's definitely a desire for kids to experience different activities. So I just want to sort of throw sort of golf into the mix that, you know, a 3-year-old can do. You know, the swimming, the little kickers, the rugby tots that you see. So why not do and little golfers? And to be fair, little golfers has always had that sort of perfect name for preschool. It's always been sort of attached to the younger geographic. So why not do some preschool kids? It will probably be organised chaos, which like it is normally.
It will be, of course it will be.
It will be. Yeah,
I can't imagine any of your sessions being subdued and quiet, put it that way.
No.
And that's just the trousers.
No, it's going to start off small, so I'm going to keep my numbers down just to make sure that I can sort of get myself into the idea of the sessions and just sort of like, it's with everything that I've done all through my career, it's just obviously I'll just experience. So I'll have a session, I'll do the session, and then I'll think about it afterwards, and some of the sessions would have been great, and then I'll think some of the sessions that are literally like I've lost my mind and it's gone horribly wrong. But that unfortunately is junior golf in a nutshell. Sometimes
nothing will go to plan. I can assure you of that.
So yeah, no, it'll be good fun. I'm looking forward to it. And again, I'm the first sort of golf academy in the country to sort of start to offer this opportunity. I know of one other person that does little ones, so that sort of age group, but doesn't use the sort of Birdie Basic concept. And again, it's just something. It's just going to be a sort of a specialized thing that I will develop and grow hopefully from it. So, but yeah, it's lots of storyboards and stickers and very visual stuff. So there's lots of sort of the tools to help. Yeah, so it'll be fantastic. So I'm looking forward to it come sort of September to get started with it really. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just hasn't been done yet. It's not really on the market as yet. So why not try to see how we go with it really.
I'm really excited about it for you. One, because obviously I've been out of nurseries for 2 years now, and I've seen it all. I have seen it all over the years. And it's great, you know, when you get coaches in, say for, I mean, even baby ballet, that kind of thing, you get these groups in, and, you know, you get these 3 and 4 year olds that can cause absolute chaos when they want to. And then they see these coaches, they see these people, and they're like, I'm going to be an angel for you, and I'm going to do everything that you ask me to do. And, you know, it's really lovely to watch.
That's what we want. That's what we want.
Yeah, that's what you want. Yeah. It's something like that. But, you know, they engage with these people, they engage with these activities because they're new, because they're different, because it's something that interests them. You know, it's something that, well, actually, yeah, I like how that looks, or I like to try that. And I think it's amazing what you're doing. And I'm a little bit jealous because obviously we're miles away from you, for one. Leo's not even 2 yet, but I think he would be he would absolutely love it. He would love it. And I'd love for something in this area where, you know, he could actually attend little toddler golf sessions or something like that. And there's just nothing available. There is the kind of, do I go into that or don't I? And I don't think I'm quite ready for that yet. We've got enough going on. But
like if we look at it from our situation, you know, Isaac's been at the Tommy Fleetwood tour today. We've had a fantastic day out. I just love being out on a golf course with him when I'm not playing and just carrying his bags. We've had a great day there. But I think that I've introduced Isaac to golf just before he was 6. And prior to that, I had golf clubs, but I didn't really do anything with them unless I was out on the course myself, which was quite rare. Whereas Leo is, you know, he's approaching 21 months now, and he's been brought up with golf balls everywhere, all over the garden, golf clubs with Isaac practicing. He's been putting. Obviously, with everything that we've done with Noisy Golf as well, and it's almost like he's just seen these things lying around the house, and he's thought, I want to go with that. And he's taken already at such an early age, he's shown such a love and interest of what these peculiar looking objects are. And you can already at this stage see the enjoyment of him when he hits a really good shot, which he does a lot of. So I think that what obviously that's because we're in a golfing family, so to speak, and obviously a golfing business, but we know that there's many not like that. And we know that, you know, the joy that golf's brought, and yet, you know, if parents don't have access to it or don't even play, that there's probably a lot of children out there that might be, more than likely going to be exactly the same as Leo, wondering what these objects are, getting the enjoyment from just swinging something and having fun. And hopefully that gives them a lifetime of continued enjoyment as well as they get introduced to the game. It's
definitely changed. You know, I was from a golfing family, so that, you know, I was a toddler as well. I've got an older half brother that played. My dad played as well, so I was born into golf as such. And I remember, and obviously this is, you know, we're talking sort of 80s, sort of early 90s. You know, I was the only kid in school that played golf. You know, there just wasn't any exposure.
No, 100%. Well, Isaac, you know, I sort of joke with him that he's the best golfer in his school, but I'm pretty sure he's the only school, seriously, and how many kids must be there? I mean, hundreds, but you know, he's you know, he is the only kid that plays, and that's obviously through the fact that I've just introduced him to it. And yet, you know, I'm seeing him develop and just love the game, which is amazing. I just think how many other kids would be doing that, you know, but they're just not given the opportunity. And it sort of links back to, you know, to what we were saying earlier. Obviously, the Olympics is an isolated case where they've obviously, you know, part of the campaign and the bid is obviously to introduce local communities to, you know, to sports and things like that. But is it the responsibility of schools to understand it better, or is it the responsibility of not necessarily just pros like yourself, but of the many other people in the golf community, you know, of people involved in the golf profession who are, you know, to go to schools and proactively seek to grow their, you know, to grow their sort of the, you know, the juniors that are, you know, essentially the members of tomorrow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the other thing which is important is, as much as I'm a PJ golf professional, I don't feel like you don't need to be a golf pro to be able to engage kids in golf.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, it's just, I just think it's just giving those people the understanding of what you're trying to achieve with it, which is just basically expose you. You're not trying to teach them, and if you are trying to teach them, you do it on a very light basis. That, you know, you're just picking out tiny little bits and pieces, you know, hands close together and feet apart, and, you know, showing your shoe at the end of the swing, and that's it, which anyone can do. You know, so like I have another coach that works for me who is not professional but has a passion for golf and is really good with kids, and that was my perfect position. That was my perfect assistant, that just someone who could infuse kids to play golf and enjoy it. So I just think there's this bit of a stigma behind it, that you have to be a professional to teach golf. You know, I think there must be PE teachers up and down the country that are football coaches, netball coaches, badminton coaches, tennis coaches, because they have to do it in their lessons. Well, why don't you just throw golf into the mix as well? You know, it wouldn't take much for an all-round multi-sport person,
of course,
to pick up the ideas behind, some of the ideas behind golf. So, that may be as a, a path going forward, just if we want more people to play. And I do think it's better, obviously, like things like Crazy Golf, which we have a few, especially around here locally, when I have gone to schools and when I have done, say, like, birthday parties and maybe just kids that I've not seen for the first time, and you ask them about golf, a lot more these days have had some sort of golf exposure. Yes, it may be Wii Sports, it may be Tiger Woods PGA Tour, it may be Crazy Golf, but they've had some form of introduction from golf. And then hopefully the real bit of swinging a golf club is sort of the next step. If we can get that into more schools, just allowing kids just to thrash a ball up a field with a sponge ball and a plastic club, that would just be perfect.
And nurseries, I think the younger you start then the better. And like you said, going in at the age of 3, then there's going to be children that are attending those nurseries that then are going to be attending your sessions. And I think just growing it from that early age right through to kind of the sessions that you're doing, and then obviously moving them forward.
And they may get they may get that sort of exposure at 3 for a couple of sessions, they may stop, but they because they've had that exposure, they may take it back up when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years down down the line.
I think that that's the thing, is you don't know what you don't know, but if you're going to give them at least the opportunity, it can go one or two ways. But as we know with golf, it's a very unique sport, and nothing replicates that feeling of when you do hit that shot. And I've seen it with Isaac when he just 5 and 6 when he just started, and there's no reason why that can't start any younger, and you get that bug sooner rather than later.
Okay, just quickly before we finish, what are your plans, Andy? So you're starting up Birdie Basics, you've obviously got your golf studio that you're running now, you're US Kids Golf Masters coach. What's going on for the next kind of 6 to 12 months for you? Where are you going to be at? Busy.
So a mini target that I've got in my head. I would love to get to a stage where we're coaching 200 kids a week. So that is sort of my mini goal to start with. Yes. I'm excited to go back in September, obviously having a nice little break at the moment, just to sort of recoup and refresh and get sort of some new ideas to come back. Obviously we're going to start coming into the winter time, so that does mean obviously my golf studio is going to take more of a frontal approach, and that's fantastic. I've got good sort of equipment and systems that I use. I use the awesome golf software, the Nevo Plus, which is fantastic for the kids. Definitely the best sort of indoor simulation for the kids as possible. And it just continue what I'm doing. I don't think I need to sort of reinvent the wheel of my, for the last sort of, especially for the last sort of 5 years or so. It's just been growing organically. You're always going to gain new kids. You're always going to lose a few kids every term just due to other activities or other changing situations. But it's just the retention of the kids that I've got and just building on that, which is definitely sort of growing to it. So excited for that. Hopefully January 2022, I will be going back to the PGA show if it's happening to hopefully pick up my Masters award, which is actually here, but it's not quite the same as FedEx delivering it. They didn't shake my hand or anything. They just passed it. They just sort of posted it to me, and it wasn't that exciting. So I'm definitely hopefully excited to get back. And obviously then it's a great opportunity. The PGA show is just a fantastic opportunity to network with other coaches that are sort of have the same sort of mindset in terms of junior coaching, etc. So I really enjoyed that in 2020. So I've definitely missed it this year. And then just see how it goes. It's definitely, I'm doing the right things. I'm on the right track. I think Birdie Basics is a great addition for that. Obviously, from a business perspective, that just allows me to do other sessions as well. I'm definitely got to a stage where my diary is pretty flat out in terms of we can't really introduce many more groups. The individual kids that I teach are on such a regular basis, I can't take any new people on. But the idea of the preschool stuff is then to start tapping into the kids that aren't even at school. So that allows me to then do a mid-morning and a mid-afternoon in between those school runs So therefore, as a business, that can grow because I can teach more kids when realistically I'm at the studio doing nothing, waiting for after school. So if I'm at the studio anyway, then why not start teaching a few little toddlers to go around to go around as well.
I'm so excited to see how this pans out. I really am.
Yeah, and then hopefully play a bit of golf myself. That's something that doesn't happen very often. So maybe I come back on tour. You know, dedicate all winter to practicing, and then play next year. But no, probably won't happen. That'll be the last thing on the list, to be fair.
Do you know what? It's really interesting. Obviously, we've spoken to a lot of coaches, and you just assume that they'll have, you know, around every weekend, or they'll be on the course, but almost virtually every single golf coach I've spoken to never gets the opportunity to play themselves. And at first it surprises me, but obviously the more we've got to know, you know, the space, it obviously makes sense because everything's done at the hours where you would want to play yourself, you know, outside of office hours, during the weekends and everything else. So
the best chance I've had at the moment is a quick sort of 9 holes at the end of coaching if I'm at Hampton Court Palace, and then to zoom round before it gets dark, and that's sort of my best chance. But unfortunately, obviously, as the light decreases, that opportunity goes, and I'll be banished to the golf studio for the whole winter. But yeah, my own golf is just doesn't happen. I'm either coaching or obviously being a father to Blake. So my own personal golf is sort of last on the list. But then when I do play, I've got to a stage now where I just love every minute, you know, and it really doesn't matter how I play. You know, there was a stage, I'd say 6-7 years ago where golf was a very stressful place for me because I was trying to play professionally. I was trying to play quite a few events in the sort of the South region, and was trying to use that as an income stream as much as doing a little bit of coaching. And it just literally just, you know, I will hold my hand up that I'm not that great as a golfer. So the opportunity to earn money from playing was going to be very, very slim, and it just got stressed. It just stressed me out. It was not. I play golf because I love playing golf. It got to a stage that I started to not love playing golf because it was just another stressful experience on a golf course. So so now I've got to a stage now where I don't play tournaments, but you know, when I get on the golf course, then it's a very pleasurable 4 hours and a nice pleasure walk, and exactly why I started playing golf
in the first place. It sounds simple in essence, but like, you know. I can totally relate to that. Obviously not from a playing perspective in terms of trying to compete and win money, but you can understand, you know, when it's you paying your bills and feeding your kids on the line, and you've got to make a 6 footer to make the cut or make any money out of it. That enjoyment can sap quite quickly.
And it's definitely got to a stage, even when, you know, you look at the European Tour, the Challenge Tour, the Euro Pro Tour, even like when you get down to like county level, there are players in each county that are just literally phenomenal, that shouldn't be playing county events, that could play on a much higher level. But you can't really say that, can you? Really?
No.
You're too good. You're going to play the European Tour. Unless I think to play professional sport full time as your income, and unless you've got the opportunity to do it all day, every day, like the guys on the telly do, then as a part-time player, it's like the old FA Cup, you know, the old part-timers against the full-timers. That we're good, but there's just always that slight difference in class that gets shown. So I think I'm happy to call my tournament days are fairly over. I'll probably come out just for one more sort of disappointing round of 84 in some pro-am or something like that. It now doesn't matter. So the most important thing is just enjoying it.
Fantastic. Well, look, Andy, as always, it's been a pleasure. You know, we've got to know you really, really well since we launched last year. We love seeing the videos that you do. We love the innovation and the, you know, random household objects, and your relationship with every item of something that you can pick out from the house to give to a child and make golf fun is something that we just really love. And we've enjoyed doing a lot of that with Isaac, especially when it came to lockdown during last year. So it's always good to catch up and on a personal level, and also learn about what's going on from a business perspective as well. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below on our social media channels. And again, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And you can also follow Andy Little Golfers on Instagram. So do check him out there. I'm sure he wouldn't want, sure he'd love some more followers as well, which he's got plenty of anyway. And we look forward to hearing your feedback. So if there's anything else that you do want to speak to us about, or people that you wanted to speak to, let us know. But thank you very much for listening to episode 3 of The Noisy Golfer.
Thanks, Andy. We wish you all the best with Birdie Basics.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Yeah.